I was a cop a long time, 20 years and some change. And during that time, I have people asking me, especially today, what I would have done when you have these people that are just not giving up any information. They're not telling you who they are when you pull them over, to try to write them a citation. We didn't ever encounter any of that. If it ever happened, it was due to some kind of a language barrier. And then, of course, we could have somebody on the police department because I think we had just about every language covered, even Klingon probably. But we would have them come and then they would talk to the people. I don't know if it's a matter of people just wanting to get more clicks and more likes and all this stuff online within their social media, or if really they do feel like they don't have to provide any personal information whenever they get stopped by a law enforcement officer. Now, of course, then they call their supervisor, and then sometimes people have the handcuffs put on them and or taken to jail. I do know, and I recall this, and maybe I'm in error, but every time we stop somebody for any kind of a traffic violation, there comes a point when you have to fill out the citation, so you need them to tell you who they are. You need to get their license and registration. And while they don't have to tell you, I believe that if they are a licensed driver, that part of the Department of Motor Vehicles, you sign something. And I know this comes true when it comes to DUI. You have to submit to a chemical test if you want to keep your driving privilege. Now, they can't make you. I guess there are certain circumstances if you are driving drunk. And again, this is just from memory and it has been a while. But I see all these videos coming out and people are adorably cute, so upset and so angry. And on the other side of it, the cops get angry and just as upset as well. I never felt that way. I guess, I also knew cops that totally, whenever they would go to court to appear on a traffic violation and they would have the defendant there, and even if the defendant really deserved the ticket and whatever in the cop's mind was, I know that some of the guys I used to work with, they would just get so upset if the judge would find in the other person's favor. And especially if the judge really, if we couldn't make rhyme or reason as to why, maybe the cop screwed up in his testimony, maybe the guy was more convincing than the police officer, which we saw happen quite frequently. And you know what? I say good for them. Good for you upholding your right and going up and taking a whole half a day to do all what's required to actually show up and contest a citation. And then we had a couple of judges that were kind of funny if the cop wouldn't show up. And here's another, let me throw this out there too. If we get subpoenaed, we have to show up. If we're sick, that still gets kind of held under inspection. That's kind of a problem. So we can't just decide to go to court or not go to court. If they're able to get us under subpoena, and I say able because there's a book that I remember at traffic we had to go in. It was our obligation to look at this book and see if there's any subpoenas in there. But let's say the subpoena control officer, the person that was in charge of issuing the subpoenas that came in from the court to give them to the cop, maybe they messed up or were on a day off, or maybe they had somebody filling in for them, but they missed the cop. The cop was in the field. A lot of times they would contact, say, Connor, you got a couple subpoenas in here to sign for. And then, of course, once I acknowledged, which we had to go inside for the subpoenas and so on. But, things did fall through the cracks, not very often, but it did happen. And usually nobody was to blame. It was just bad timing on the court. But you can pretty much trust if the cop is being subpoenaed, they're going to be there. Now, the other question comes in, what if they're on vacation? Well, if they're on vacation, usually there's a part on the citation that says what their vacation happens to be. And yeah, we all kind of plan it out a year ahead because that's kind of the pecking order. If you have a lot of time on, a lot of seniority, and you're ranking grade as a cop, at least this was LAPD standard, if you have a lot of time, then usually you can choose the best vacation, which was usually DP13, which was the end of the year, encompassing Christmas and New Year's. So you would get that segment for vacation. That was fantastic. But whatever time it was, usually the cops will write it on the citation. So if in fact they have vacation, then the court will work around it because the clerk, when you contest it, they'll look and say, oh, well, he's going to be on vacation when you want to have your trial, so we have to move it to another date. And if you can win that argument with them, good for you. Then they schedule it during the time you show up. Now, there is a chance that they'll get subpoenaed during that time they're on vacation and will come in. Maybe they're in the station just wanting to be chummy and say hi to everybody because they miss their coworkers. I don't know. And they have a subpoena, they sign for it. Some cops just are more diligent in that regard than others. Some take it more to heart. Some look at it as their, last stand, and some kind of like me, just kind of go through the motions. Now, of course, I never want to see anybody hurt. And if somebody was hurting somebody, I would be the first to run into that fight. If one of my partners was getting the shit kicked out of them, I'd be the first run in and help them. And that was a majority of the people I worked with. But having said that, I do see TV and I see how some police act, and it's kind of different, I guess, than back in the day. Back to the tickets, back to the citations. So ultimately, if somebody doesn't care about their driving privilege and decides not to give up their personal and private information, I guess the next step is going to be to take the vehicle, because I can't verify that they have a driver's license. So they might not have the right to drive. And if I let them go, let's say it all works out like I've seen in some of these videos that they just leave. Where's the liability? So I stopped them. Connor McIver stopped the guy or the girl and had my supervisor come and everything else. And then they decide, well, we'll just let them go because we can't identify them. Well, what about the issue that they're driving a vehicle that requires a license to operate a motor vehicle? And let's say they go down the street and kill a kid in a crosswalk. That kid's parents is going to, the parents of that kid or whomever they hurt is going to be pretty irritated, and it will be found out that I let somebody go, or my supervisor with me let somebody go, or they did it on their own. And I would, of course, make the case out at the scene. Listen, I disagree with you, Sergeant or Lieutenant or Captain. I disagree with you letting this person drive off. So the best thing we can do is impound the car. Now, when we impound the car, per the vehicle code, we have to do an inventory. And if the person's in the car, well, we can't really impound the car, I guess, with a person in it, because then the person gets impounded too. We would have to put them on the impound report as property, but they're a human being, so they're really not property. So I guess it's not covered. So they're going to have to be taken out of the vehicle at some point because we can't verify that they have the privilege to drive. Do you see? It just kind of gets messy. I mean, it's great for TikTok and Instagram. It's a lot of fun. But in essence, understand that if you're going to go on this little venture and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to film this and see what happens, you might be in for a rude awakening. Now, yes, you might have a great lawsuit and maybe they're going to violate your rights. Maybe you're going to be able to dig in under that cop's skin and just piss them off to a point that they're going to Rodney King your ass. And not that I was in disagreement with all that stuff, but well, that's a whole nother story. But let's say they do go a little happy and they beat you within an inch of your life. Is it worth the payoff? I don't know. I don't know. It's the older I get, the more sore I get just getting out of bed. And then to think about some cops kicking the holy hell out of me, I would much rather keep my hands on the wheel, answer their questions, yes sir, no sir, or yes officer, no officer, or yes deputy, no deputy, whatever it is, and just go about my life. But I'm also not out there trying to troll people into doing things against me so I can become TikTok or YouTube or Instagram famous. There's that. But I will tell you some of the things in my video. Please comment. I know that some of them are probably going to hit you wrong. Even other police officers, when I say that maybe you're taking things a little too serious. But yes, it is serious business, and I understand that. But in essence, if you have somebody toying and playing with you, recognize that for what it is. You don't have to get upset. Be a good actor. You'll come out of this even better, and who knows, maybe you'll become TikTok and Instagram famous. I'm Connor with Honor. We'll see you in the next one.